Good morning and welcome to Graceway Church's Women's Sunday School class. Today we're finishing up our series on the Ten Commandments. We've been in the Bible Studies for Life book and we're on session 6 today. This session is called Honor All Relationships. Last week we talked about honoring marriage, and this week we're talking about honoring all relationships. So let's start on page 72, and the first question is, who has been an example of personal integrity in your life? There have been a lot of people. I've been blessed to know a lot of people that I would say have a lot of integrity. And spend a few minutes thinking back over people that were really examples of integrity in your life and the traits that made them that way. Several people I know of. In fact, I am blessed to say one of the people of integrity in my life is my husband. Of course, he's not perfect. No one's perfect. So we're not looking for perfection, but, a life and a lifestyle that portrays integrities. Now, integrity can be defined a lot of different ways. So today we're going to define integrity by commandments 8, 9, and 10. So that is our study today, is the last 3 commandments, 8, 9, and 10. The point on page 73. Integrity and commitment in Christ form the foundation of good relationships. So that's how he gets his topic, to honor all relationships. And we're going to be in Exodus 20, 15 through 17. The author's introduction here is kind of interesting. I'm going to read part of this. One lie can collapse a friendship. One slanderous accusation can destroy people's perception of you or of us. One wrong choice can cause a decade of growth to crumble. The 10 Commandments provide a solid foundation built on honor and commitment to ensure the structural integrity of our relationships. So let's turn to page 74, and we're going to start in Exodus 20, verses 15 and 16. This is the 8th and 9th commandment. So Exodus chapter 20, verse 15. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. We never know who is watching our actions or listening to our words. So in the middle of that page, this is a quote from 1 Peter. Having your conversation honest among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may by your good works, which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation. So this emphasizes the fact that our integrity, the way we live our lives, the things we say, people are watching. You never know who's going to be watching. And whether or not people believe people will take you seriously and take what you believe and what you say seriously is colored by how they perceive you and the integrity and the truth that you show in your life and words. And this verse, in 1 Peter, emphasizes that it's our life of integrity, our life of doing right and acting right, that is used for God's glory, that makes us an effective witness. When I was reading through this, I had a flashback of a conversation I had several years ago with a Muslim man. He was a man I worked with regularly. And, we were having a conversation, and he said, one of the things that makes it so hard for Muslims to take Christians seriously and listen to what Christians have to say is, from the Muslim point of view, Christians do not live a life of integrity. They have loose ways or sinful ways from the Muslims' point of view. And I was at a loss of what to say, because I know in a lot of times that's true. And I think sometimes we forget how important the way we live and the things we say matter, and that anytime somebody could be watching you, someone who needs to know the truth could be watching you and decide whether or not to listen to what you say by the way you act. So let's continue on right below that. Conducting ourselves honorably and with integrity is at the heart of these two of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal, and thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. We are to treat others with respect. That includes respect for their positions. Our words should also show respect for the other person. Let's stop right here and given our times, let's get political right now with those words. Our words should also show respect for the other person. Our words should always show respect for the other people. This time of the year, there's so much mudslinging, as it said, and that is not a Christian thing. We should never be that way. Don't forget, not only is the other party, from whatever you may believe, the other party, not only are those people, but let's don't forget that the politicians are people too. And we should we can disagree on ideas without being hateful and disrespectful to one another. There's way too much of that, and there's no place for that in a Christian's life or vocabulary. So question number 2 at the top of 75. Why is it important for witnesses, why is it important for believers to be people of integrity? And as we were just talking about in the page before, I think one of the big reasons is because we're called to be a witness to God's love and God's glory. And if we do not portray that in the way we behave, then, what kind of a witness are we? I would say, we're bringing shame not only to ourselves, but we're bringing shame to the Lord as well. Another real reason, kind of fits hand in glove with that, is it's important for us to be people of integrity because we are commanded to show love. You cannot show love to someone if you're disrespecting them, if you're stealing from them, if you're lying about them. If you are not treating them with respect, then you can't show love to them. One good reason we're supposed to do this is because we're commanded to. That is pure and simple. The Lord commands us to do it. And then another reason that it's important for us is the principle of sowing and reaping. You reap what you sow. So if we show the hostility, the disrespect, the thieving, the lying, whatever, we will reap the consequences of that. There's a law in place there that what you sow, you will reap. And it happens. That even applies to non-Christians as well. And that's just, a law of nature. What you sow, you reap. So continuing on there, loving one another includes speaking the truth in love at all times. That's in Ephesians 4:15. Many people will excuse a lie, calling it only a little white lie. I like what he says here. A little lie is like being a little pregnant. It'll always show up after a while. Lies have a way of creating a boomerang effect and coming right back at us to cause a lot of damage. And I think we've all been there. We've all seen how you started out with just a little lie, either to, sidestep a little bit of trouble or make yourself look a little bit better. And before you know it, it has blown all out of proportion, and you have just all kinds of consequences to reap. And that's, just kind of a reminder of how big and bad this thing can actually be. And there's really no excuse for it. Question number 3. What are the consequences for society when people don't live with honesty and integrity. So we were doing a little bit of talking about the consequences for individuals when you don't live that way. But what are the consequences for society as a whole? Well, I think if you just look at the news, you can see that we're reaping those consequences right now. A consequence of a society that doesn't value integrity and honesty. No trust. You don't know who to believe. You don't trust anybody. You don't trust the government. You don't trust the media. You don't trust whoever is saying whatever. That's the results of a society that doesn't value integrity. You don't know who to trust. You can't trust anybody. People don't have common courtesy and respect for each other. You can certainly see that every time you turn on the news. Sometimes it goes farther than that into downright hate. And we see a lot of that in our society. Unrest, fear, and a no sense of what is right and what is wrong, and things that, just a few years ago would have been horrifying to us. Now we excuse away like, well, maybe they're justified in doing and saying these things. I think that's a lot of the results to our society. We're seeing it, right now in our society, in what we see on the news and sometimes in our own neighborhoods and our own lives. So now we're going to move on to the 10th commandment. And I think it's interesting that the Lord ended with this commandment, because it does, in my mind, it does kind of like tie everything together. And I'll talk about why here in a little bit. So let's continue on in Exodus chapter 20, verse 17. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. So this is talking about coveting. What exactly is the definition of coveting? Now, coveting it's one of those nuanced words. So it's not really simple to just give it a definition to, and I've heard a lot of good definitions, but I kind of like this one that they put in here: an inordinate, ungoverned, selfish desire, not being satisfied with what you already have. I think that word selfish is very telling. That's kind of what distinguishes covetousness from, simple desires. I'm going to read this little portion of page 76 to you as well. Among Aesop's fables is the story of a dog crossing a bridge with a bone in his mouth. As he looked into the water, he saw a reflection of what he thought was an even larger dog with what seemed like an even larger bone. Wanting the bigger bone, the dog immediately opened up his mouth to go after it. Yet, in the process, the bone in his mouth dropped out and fell into the water and quickly sunk to the bottom. Not only did the dog fail to get the larger bone, but he also lost the one he had been enjoying all along. And that is a picture of covetousness. That is the way that the kind of desiring something that somebody else has that's going to cause nothing but pain and destruction. So I kind of wrote out in my mind an example, a picture, a good way to describe covetousness. So what if you want a brand new car? That's just really your desire, and you really want a brand new car. So you determine that you are going to work and save for this in order to buy a brand new car. So now that's a desire, and that's fine. That's okay where that is. How do you know when it crosses over into covetousness? Well, these are some examples. So you want this new car, and then you see that your neighbor gets a brand new car just like you wanted, but he doesn't have to try, he doesn't have to work, he doesn't have to save, he just gets it. And you get kind of upset and angry, and you think that's not fair. That's covetousness. How about, or here's another example. If you want that car so badly that you are willing to quit giving to other people, quit giving to the charities of the church or the people that you've been giving to. Now that goes to where it's covetousness, because you are taking away, and hurting other people, and it's a selfish kind of desire. So that's when it crosses over into covetousness. How about this? You're working and saving for that new car, going to get that new car at the end of the year, and then the water heater breaks, and you have to spend half your savings in the water heater breaking. Does that make you angry? Does that just blow everything out of proportion? That's another sign that what you might have is you might be going toward covetousness. Or here's one more. So you want that car. You want it so badly that you are willing to go down right now and finance that car right now, even knowing that that's going to take something away from your family or put you in a lot of debt, a lot of stress, something that you just can't afford. So now you've passed into covetousness. So not all desires are covetousness, but it's really, the covetousness comes when it becomes a dangerous or destructive desire. Now, like I wrote here again, the big thing about covetousness is it is a selfish desire. It's when you place your wants and your desires above the wants and needs of other people. So then the flip side of covetousness, let's say the exact opposite of covetousness, is contentment. Contentment is realizing that God has met your needs, and then coupling that realization with gratitude. And here in page 77, he gives several examples of what contentment is. And I'll read one or two of them. Contentment is being happy driving an old jalopy, just as happy with an old jalopy as you would be with a Mercedes. Realizing in both cases, you have transportation. You have what you need. Contentment is enjoying a hot dog instead of wanting that T-bone steak, because in both cases, you are not starving. You have something to eat. So contentment is being happy with what you've got. Not that you never want more, but that you continue to be happy and satisfied and grateful for what you have. The Apostle Paul penned the secret of contentment, and this is in Philippians 4. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased, and I know how to abound. In everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. A lot of times you'll hear part of that passage, but not all of it. That statement, that quote, I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me, goes directly with verses he said before about being content. I can be content and happy in whatever situation the Lord has put me in. And it's not just contentment like as in, oh well, I guess, and not trying for more. It's a contentment like an actual gratitude, thankfulness for what you have. And that is the cure for covetousness right there. Contentment is the key to living a life of integrity as well, because it provides security, the security necessary for us to just rest in the reality of the moment. If you'll stop and think about it, the other two commandments we just went over, lying and stealing. Really, lying and stealing both come from the same root of covetousness, of wanting something you don't have, whether it be esteem in the eyes of another or a physical thing. Almost always, if you lie or you steal, you're doing it because you covet something that you don't have. So that's why I think coveting is is a good way to end up the 10 Commandments, because I think a lot of times that desire, that coveting, is at the root of what makes us break the other commandments. Let's go to question number 4 on page 78. What are some practical steps that we can take to prevent coveting in our lives? So what are some things we can do to make sure that we don't fall into this trap of coveting? You remember that old sound, count your blessings, name them one by one? It's a kid's song, but there's a lot of wisdom in that right there. That will help so much with the coveting and the dissatisfaction, the ingratitude. If we just take the time to realize how greatly blessed we are and how many things we have, write it down. It helps to remember things when you write it down. Write down your blessings. Here's another thing. Take a break from social media. Realize things are not always how they seem. There's a lot about listening to other people's opinions and looking at other people's lives that tend to make us dissatisfied or unhappy in one way or another. So, if you're one of those ones that are on social media wrapped up in what other people think, day after day, that's just not healthy, and that's not going to help you to be a person of gratitude. And like I said, realize that things are not as they seem. Cultivate gratitude. Go out of your way. Try really hard to reinforce in your own mind how much you have, how grateful you are. And when you feel yourself getting angry or depressed, that's all the more time to stop and realize how really blessed we are. Like I said earlier, coveting and gratitude are complete opposites, and they can't exist together. When you are truly grateful for what you have, then you're not going to be out, coveting and just I just gotta have whatever it is that, Sue and Bob down the street have, when you're truly grateful for what you have. So I guess my answer to number 4 is, in a nutshell, to prevent coveting, work on gratitude. Consciously, diligently work on being grateful. Now we're still continuing on this topic of gratitude and contentment, and the author takes us to Psalm 37. That's on the bottom of page 78 if you don't have your Bible right in front of you. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thy envious against the workers of iniquity. For they shall soon be cut down like grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good, so thou shalt dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way into the Lord. Trust also in him, and he will bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday. These words capture the heart of the commandment not to covet. He says, using words like trust and delight and, looking at God. Don't like the first verses say there, don't spend your time looking at other people. Don't spend your time looking at evildoers or even other Christian people. Don't be envious for them. Don't pay attention to their lives. Instead, focus your attention on God. How much he loves you, how much he's done for you, how many blessings he has given you. Trust in him. Commit your way to him. Delight in him. And then that will bring you the rest and the contentment that deep down we all really want and need. Trust in the Lord and do good. When you do, you will receive the desires of your heart. You will receive everything that God has for you, and he always has enough. That is why you can rest. That is how you can let go. quit striving, quit worrying, quit grabbing and grasping for more, and trust Him to bring you all that you really need. And that will bring you a lifetime of love and happiness. Let's go to page 80 and finish up with question number 5. What evidence have you seen that God's commands are for your own good? What evidence have you seen? What has it been in your own life that you have seen when you do things God's way, how great it turns out? Or on the flip side, when you choose to go against, and we'll just lump in the whole 10 Commandments here. When you choose to go against that, how has it turned out to your own harm? Stop and think about that. We all have stories. We do. And, I think of, the good side of that. Contentment. Contentment, when you can cultivate that contentment and the gratitude, it gets rid of a lot of stress and drama in your life. You don't have all the worry, all the stress, all the striving, and the drama out of your life. And then let's look at the other side of that. For example, lies. Lies always bring retribution, and before that, they bring worry and stress and trying to figure out who knows what and what you said where and what's going to happen next. All of that comes from lies that you tell. And then many of the sins that are mentioned in the Bible bring health issues, either physical ones like, the gluttony that I struggle with, the stress, the worry that we struggle with brings a lot of physical health issues. And on and on and on. So many times we can see in our life where we chose not to do what God wanted us to do. And, it ended up hurting us. So stop and take a step back and look and realize, and I need to do this. I need to realize these commands that He gives us, they're for our own good. They're for our happiness, for our contentment, for our good, for our character building, for our integrity. And, I hate to admit it, but God knows more than I do. And if He says that this is the best way to go, I probably ought to stop and listen. So let's go to page 81, and this is the Live It Out portion. This is the part of the Bible study where the author gives you some practical ways to take what we've talked about and apply it to your life. And his first point here is check your words. Yeah, check your words. Be mindful of your words and actions this week. If you are tempted to say or do anything that is not honest and truthful, kind and respectful, stop yourself. Commit to being a person of integrity. Like I said, the temptations right now with all the political talk, the temptations are going to be very high to get emotionally invested and to say things that are not kind and respectful. Let's try extra hard. Let's try extra hard for the next month to make sure that all of our words are spoken in love. Point number 2, memorize. He suggests memorizing 2 Corinthians 9, chapter 9, verse 8. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work. Always remember that verse because of all of the alls in there. Makes you think that he's talking about all things. Let this verse remind you always that you have what you need. You have what you need already to live fully in Him. And then number 3, encourage. We could all use some positive encouragement. And I think, verbal encouragement compliments tie in particularly well to this because compliments remind people, remind all of us. If you are complimented on something, it is a direct reminder of something that you have to be grateful for. So choose to be a source of encouragement to people. Be quick to point out what's good and right with them, and good and right in their lives and in the lives of their children and their loved ones, and be a positive, encouraging person. Thank you so much for listening. This has been fun. I've liked this session on the 10 Commandments. I told you at the beginning of the study that I really like Tony Evans, and kind of brings me back to my young adult days when I used to listen to him preach on the radio all the time. So this has been enjoyable for me. And next week we're going to start up with our new session, and our new session is about living a life of commitment and being committed to Jesus and committed to the ministry. And there's a 6-week session on that as well. So if you're going to Graceway, or you have any way you can get a hands on a Bible Studies for Life book, we'll be picking up on the second half of that next week. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for the encouraging words that y'all have given to me. And we'll see you next week.